The clink of a milk bottle on the doorstep, the distant whine of a lawnmower on a damp Saturday morning, the smoky tang of coal fires curling through the mist. If any of that sparks something deep in your chest, you're halfway there already. This isn't just a list. It's a trip back into a Britain that slowly slipped through our fingers. Back when telly signed off at night, school dinners were a daily dare, and Saturday afternoons meant pocket money and pick and mix. Some of it was rough, most of it was real, but all of it, every last sound, smell and feeling, made you who you are. Stay with us, because the next 11 memories, they're not just history, they're yours. It sat like a shrine in the corner of the lounge, heavy, humming, and holy. The television set of the 70s wasn't background noise. It was the fireplace of the modern British home. Maybe yours had the wooden casing and the big chunky dials, and maybe it took a good minute to warm up, the screen flickering like it was struggling to wake from a dream. Before remote controls, you were the remote, sent up from the rug to twist the dial with a satisfying clunk. BBC One, BBC Two, and if you were lucky, the slightly fuzzy glow of ITV. And when colour finally arrived, it was like stepping into the future. The green of the football pitch, the bold jumpers on Swap Shop. Suddenly the world felt brighter, louder, more alive. And then there was Grange Hill, where kids looked like you and said things you weren't supposed to say. Blue Peter handing out badges like gold dust. The test card girl, remember her? Staring back at you with that weird, knowing smile, and the clown no one quite trusted. And always, always the national anthem at the end of the night. A quiet, proud, full stop before the screen faded into that ghostly white dot. But it wasn't just what was on, it was who was there. Mum knitting, Dad pretending not to watch the generation game. You on the carpet, elbows on itchy wool. It was a family event, a shared silence, a laugh you all had at the same time. You didn't just watch telly, you lived in its glow. The tray was always damp, the peas always rolled, and the smell, a curious blend of gravy, cabbage, and institutional dread, hit you the second you entered the hall. British school dinners in the 70s were a test of character and stomach. There was semolina that stuck to the spoon like glue, liver that looked like it had lost a fight, slabs of corned beef, iceberg lettuce limp with despair, and mash that sometimes had a suspicious skin. And yet, somehow, you still hoped for a good day. A scoop of pink custard, jam roly-poly, or the Holy Grail, chocolate sponge with mint custard. You queued with your mates, plastic trays in hand, hoping you'd dodge the worst of it. You knew which dinner ladies dished heavy and which ones gave out the stingy bits. There was strategy, there was survival, and the noise, metal chairs scraping, kids shouting, spoons clattering on formica tables, the clunk of dessert bowls stacked 10 high, the faint sound of someone crying into their cabbage. But here's the thing, you remember it, don't you? The fear, the weird delight, the bragging rights if you cleared your plate without gagging, because it wasn't just food, it was a rite of passage, and somehow it still lingers. Coming up next, a memory that sparkled like your pocket money dreams. Woolies on a Saturday. There was something almost sacred about a Saturday trip to Woolies. Whether you were in Croydon or Carlisle, the moment you stepped through those big glass doors, the world smelled like sugar, plastic, and possibility. You knew where you were heading, straight for the pick and mix. Rows and rows of sugary treasure, neatly scooped into paper bags by hands just a little too eager. Cola bottles, flying saucers, foam bananas. You'd agonize over every sweet, every penny, weighing it out on the old metal scale, while a tired woman in a tabard looked on with a mix of pity and patience. But Woolworths was more than sweets. It was the toy aisle with action men and Cindy dolls still in their boxes. It was the records section, where the top 40 singles hung on racks like sacred texts. It was the rows of pencils and notebooks before term started, and those scratchy school jumpers that never quite fit. The lights buzzed overhead. The lino squeaked beneath your feet. Your mum was somewhere near the household goods, buying pegs or curtain hooks. But you You were in your own little kingdom, and when you had your coins clenched tight in your palm, warm from your hand, you knew exactly what mattered. A bag of sweets, a plastic yo-yo, maybe a cheap cassette with taped off the radio songs. It was more than shopping. It was independence, wrapped in cellophane and syrup. Then one day, it was gone. The shop boarded up. The logo faded. But the smell, that woolly smell, still lives somewhere in the back of your mind. No phones, no texts, just the rule that every 70s kid knew by heart: be home when the streetlights come on. And until then, the world was yours. The day started with the clang of a front door and ended with mud-caked shoes and scabbed knees. You'd hop on your bike, no helmet, no fear, and ride like you were chasing freedom itself, down alleyways, across fields, through estates where you only half knew the other kids' names. There were conquer wars and curbsy games, makeshift goalposts, secret dens in overgrown lots. The air was thick with the smell of grass, diesel, and chip shops. The sun, when it showed up, baked the pavement till your trainers stuck. You didn't need a schedule, just a knock on the door and a "coming out" yelled from the front garden. You learned to fill your hours with whatever you had: a stick, a ball, a bit of chalk. And when it rained, you played in it, got soaked, laughed, cried, dried off later with a hot Ribena and a towel that smelled faintly of your nan's house. And when those street lights flickered on, just one, then another, something shifted. Time folded back into itself. You pedaled harder, ran faster. Not out of fear, but because that one small glow meant the day was done. You can't replicate that freedom. Not now. Not really. But if you close your eyes, you can still feel the wind on your face and the taste of summer in your mouth. Next up, a sound you'd chase through the estate without thinking twice: the ice cream van. There it was, faint at first, like a dream, that tinkly, tinny tune drifting through the air, cutting through conversation and clattering tea things. You froze mid-sentence. Your ears perked up. Then, like clockwork, came the shout, "Mom, the ice cream man!" The 70s ice cream van wasn't just a vehicle. It was a mobile celebration, a chariot of joy that rumbled through the neighborhood like a parade for one. The engine idled as the jingle looped, luring kids like a Pied Piper. You'd sprint barefoot across hot tarmac or cold paving, coins sweaty in your hand, desperate not to miss it. And the choices, oh, the choices. Screwballs with a gobstopper at the bottom, 99 flakes with that soft, swirled crown and a drizzle of strawberry syrup, funny feet, zooms, feast bars with that brick-solid center, each one wrapped in anticipation and melting quicker than you could eat it. The van smelled of cold sugar and freezer oil. The man inside, always slightly grumpy, always slightly magic, leaned out of that tiny window with his sleeves rolled up and a flake already in hand. You might get a nod, you might get a wink. You always got joy. Then you'd sit on the curb, or the wall, or the patch of grass by the garages. You'd compare drips, swap bites, maybe share a sherbet dab with someone you liked. It wasn't just dessert, it was community. That music, you still hear it sometimes, not in the streets, but in your bones. Itchy, that's the first word that comes to mind. The jumpers were always itchy, knit by hand or handed down from a cousin, usually with colors that clashed with everything, including your skin tone. But you wore it, because in the 70s, fashion wasn't about branding or influencers. It was about what your mum found on offer, what Nan could sew, and what your mates weren't already taking the mick out of. Flares flapped in the breeze like sails on the schoolyard, platform shoes that made you taller and sometimes just made you fall over, tank tops, paisley prints, zip-up tracksuits that swished when you walked, and let's not forget the brown. Everything was brown. Shirts, trousers, wallpaper, life. You'd go to school in a parka so heavy it could stop a bullet, and come home drenched in sweat under all that quilted padding. In summer, you got those nylon short sets that stuck to your legs if you sat on vinyl. And for PE, plimsolls so thin you could feel the gravel beneath your feet. But somehow, through all the chafing and embarrassment, it worked, because everyone looked a bit odd, and in that shared oddness was identity, belonging. Maybe you envied the cool kid with the real Adidas bag, but your hand-me-down was yours, frayed badge and all. These weren't just clothes, they were character. Every scratchy thread, every dodgy zip, every sleeve too long or too short, told the story of growing up real. And now, when you see some lad on telly wearing the same clobber for fashion's sake, you just smile, because you didn't choose it, you survived it. It began early, sometimes before you were even properly awake. The low hum of the oven, the clatter of roasting trays, and that unmistakable smell creeping up the stairs. Slow, rich, and comforting. The Sunday roast wasn't just a meal, it was an event, a ceremony, a whole day unfolding around one single plate. There was meat, of course, beef if you were lucky, lamb if Nan was coming round, maybe pork with that perfect, tooth-threatening crackling, potatoes roasted in lard, crisp and golden with those delicious dark edges, boiled veg, never quite al dente, Yorkshire puddings that rose or flopped depending on who made them, and the gravy, thick, brown, and always just a little too salty. The table was set with care, maybe the best plates, maybe not, but always with routine. The carving knife sharpened with an air of importance. Mum dishing out while keeping order. Someone, usually you, sneakily trying to nick a roastie before grace. And then, the silence. That reverent first 5 minutes when everyone was too busy eating to talk. Just the clink of cutlery and the occasional pass the salt. Maybe your dad nodded in approval. Maybe your brother groaned at the sprouts. Either way, this was the heartbeat of the house. Afterwards came pudding, if you had room, apple crumble, spotted dick, or maybe just jelly with evaporated milk. You'd slump on the sofa, full-bellied, sleepy, the telly humming with songs of praise or a Bond film. It wasn't just food, it was family, it was rhythm, it was home, and sometimes even now you catch that scent again, and for a moment, you're right back there. They felt heavy in your hand, cold in winter, slightly sticky in summer, but always, always valuable beyond their worth. In 70s Britain, coins were characters. The halfpenny that got you a sweet, the threepenny bit that jingled differently in your pocket, sixpences saved in jam jars or stuffed into birthday cards with handwriting you still remember. They had weight, they had presence, they made a sound when they hit a table, a satisfying clink that felt real. You learned their shapes by feel, could tell a shilling from a penny just by the edge. And when decimalization came in 1971, the world felt odd. New coins, strange sizes, confusing maths. It was like someone had swapped out your childhood for something shinier but colder. But still, those old coins lingered, in purses, in biscuit tins under the bed, in your dad's drawer of bits and bobs. You played shops with them, bit them like pirates, lost them between the sofa cushions, and found them years later with a gasp. And they bought things that mattered, a bag of crisps, a Beano, a ride on the Dodgems, or a birthday gift you saved up weeks for, counting every penny on your bedroom carpet. Money meant more when you felt every piece. Now it's all tap and swipe, digital, clean, forgettable. But if you ever hold an old coin again, really feel it, you'll know that wasn't just currency. It was childhood, etched in copper and silver. Before smartphones, before Spotify, there was the kitchen radio, usually white, usually slightly yellowing with age, sitting next to the bread bin or above the fridge, its little plastic dial tuned to a station that rarely changed. You knew the voices, Tony Blackburn in the morning, cheery as your toast popped, Terry Wogan with his sideways wit, news bulletins that interrupted the music with words that never quite made sense until you were older, and always that tinny sound, not quite clear, not quite clean, but somehow perfect. The kitchen was the heart of the house, and the radio was its pulse. It crackled beneath the sizzle of bacon. It sang through washing up time. Your mum hummed along while stirring a pot. Your dad muttered at the news, shaking his head, tea in hand. And the music, it stuck. Whether it was Slade, the Carpenters, or the Wurzels, those tunes carved themselves into your bones, songs you didn't even know you knew, until you found yourself singing them 30 years later, out of nowhere, word perfect. Sometimes the reception went. You'd hear a ghostly warble, a sudden buzz of static, a quick tap on the top, a twist of the aerial. Back it came. It wasn't just background noise, it was memory being made, quietly, steadily, every single day. A voice in the corner that made the house feel full. And when you hear those old songs now, wherever you are, you're right back there, bare feet on cold lino, buttered toast in hand, and a whole world waiting just outside the window. It was never glamorous. Not really, but it didn't need to be, because when August came and the car was packed to bursting, you knew you were headed somewhere special, even if it rained the entire time. Maybe it was Blackpool, maybe real, maybe a battered old site in Devon with a rusty swing set and a corner shop that sold rock and postcards. You'd arrive late, the caravan cold and musty, the gas fire stubborn. But it didn't matter. You were on holiday. There were bunk beds, stiff blankets, and cupboards that smelled like Tupperware and dust. You'd burn toast in the mornings and make tea in enamel mugs. There was condensation on the windows, condensation in your socks, and a wind that seemed to sneak in no matter how tightly you shut the door. But there were also beach days, wrapped in towels, teeth chattering, buckets full of grey sand, crabbing with bacon on string, fish and chips on the wall, and nights at the clubhouse where grown-ups drank brown ale and you danced to Boney M under spinning lights. You didn't have a passport, you didn't need one, because those holidays stitched themselves into your soul. You learned how to wait for things, how to laugh when plans went wrong, how to sleep through snoring, wind, and the odd wasp invasion. And when it was time to go home, the car was always heavier somehow, with damp towels, with sand in the seats, but mostly with something warm and unspoken that only a caravan holiday could give. You felt it before you even entered the room, that hush, that strange, respectful silence that came just before assembly began. Shoes shuffling, teachers standing like statues, the faint smell of floor polish and boiled cabbage from the lunch hall next door. Then the piano would strike up. No microphones, no auto-tune, just voices, yours included, singing hymns you didn't fully understand. Morning has broken, all things bright and beautiful. He who would valiant be. You mumbled the verses, stole glances at your mates, and tried not to laugh during the high bits, but it stuck. Those songs became part of you, their rhythms, their strange little lines, rich man in his castle, poor man at his gate, echoing across decades. And then there was the cane. Maybe you didn't get it, maybe you did, but its presence loomed, hanging on the head's wall, rumored to have a name. One wrong word, one fight too many, and it came out, swift and silent. 2 on the hand, maybe 3, red sting, shame, silence. But here's the strange thing. For all the fear and rigidity, there was structure, a rhythm to school life that felt, even then, unshakable. And though no one really misses the cane, there's something hauntingly familiar about that daily gathering. Those songs sung in unison, those rules everyone understood. You look back now, and it feels like a different world, because it was. If any part of this brought back a smell, a sound, a smile you'd forgotten, then this space is for you. Share the memory that hit you hardest in the comments. We'd love to hear it. And if you want to keep walking through the past, one memory at a time, go on, hit subscribe. Let's keep these stories alive together.